the Great Ocean Road Coast and Parks Authority. Jodie Sizer, who is our CEO, would have been here today, but she had prior commitments, so she does apologise for that. So I've got a stack of slides that's all been prepared for me, some speaking notes and things like that, but we'll make it as interactive as you want. We can do some questions and answers as we go along or at the end, and it's up to yourselves. But please, let's get the most out of it for yourselves, and how that happens, we'll go with the flow. So that's done. Okay, so why we exist. It's I think a lot of you know the story. This started back in 2016 with I think it was a reaction or result of the Wairau fires and not the response to the fires itself, but the response to the recovery after that. And there was fragmented management, which meant things took longer or didn't happen. So a task force was set up, and we had the 5 LGA CEOs on it. We had ex-ministers on it that were leading it, and we had community members on it as well. And they came up with some recommendations. So I think it was 26 recommendations that were sent to Parliament, and they were all accepted, which is pretty unusual, which also gives us a lot to do. We're a state government statutory authority, so we have an independent board. You know some of our board members, Libby and Doug are members of this community. As Jody calls them, they're the A-team. So they do hold us to account. They actually do want to make the difference that's needed. So they're pretty brave, they're pretty challenging, which is good at times. But they're also not afraid to actually pause and have a look at things that have been done previously and say, is that the right thing? So around here, we've got a 2008 split point lighthouse master plan. We've got the 2019, it wasn't even finalised, the memorial arch and things like that. So our board have given us really clear direction to do some strategies before we start doing master plans or looking at those. So, and we'll be talking about some of those strategies, but a little bit about the authority itself. We've got Jodie, who's our CEO, and we've now got 4 directorates. We've got operations, which I lead. We have corporate services, we have infrastructure and planning, and we have a new one that's our new director starts next month, which is strategy, transformation, and engagement. Engagement is a really key area for us. We've got about 160 staff now, and we're probably going to be looking to double that number by the end of 2025, and 2025 is a key date for us, the 1st of November, because that's when the 1,000 parcels of land that are managed by other entities at the moment will be transferred to the authority. So it either happens and we plan it, or it happens on that date. Now I can say that we're working very closely with all our LGAs, but with Surf Coast Shire particularly at the moment, on coming up with some very strong methodologies to do that. Robin's team have dedicated a lot of time to this, and we do appreciate that because it does take a lot of time, but we have to get it right. There's some key things, we've got the sporting reserves, they're on Crown land, but how do we manage that? One of the things that all parties want to make sure is that the end users aren't affected or negatively. Positively, we hope, but how we work through that, and there's some structures within state government for community leases and things like that, which we'll work through. But certainly some of the things we've been taught, the comments we're getting from the community is, oh, you're going to be charging the footy clubs all this rent. We're not. We're not going to do it. It's not in our interest to do that. But it's also not in the community's interest. So the community have a very, very strong voice within our organisation, and we're going to, we'll be listening and we'll be doing things like that. But in terms of those 1,000 land parcels, there's 50 in the Surf Coast Shire. Then it goes down, we've got 18 in Colac Otway, we've got 9 in Moyne, we've got 7 elsewhere, and 50 in Warrnambool. But the majority of them, 330, are with Parkspeak, and 442 are with DELP. And you probably won't be, it won't surprise you that the information from Surf Coast Shire is brilliant. The bit from DELP we haven't got. So, that, and to give them the credit, they just get dumped with anything that no one else manages, and so they don't actually know that they manage it at times and things like that. So we've got a lot of work to do, but there is a structure in place, and we've got a plan that we're going to be coming out to community consultation quite soon with what that plan looks like. But we will be taking land after peak, so we won't be doing it at Christmas time. So we're looking to do it early in after Easter, so around the May time, and then we won't be taking inland after November, really, as we gear up for the peak season and things like that. Okay. What have we got here? So, this is what we've got to do. So, prior to the authorities started, we had all these policies, regulations, institutions, and what's the other word then? Accountabilities and things like that, and acts and legislation. They're still there. But what we're here to do is actually to bring a coordinated approach to that. So it's work in partnership with our LGAs, with Parks Vic, with the government, with Barwon Water, Department of Transport, all the utility companies, community groups, to bring it all together to have a more coordinated approach. We have a coordinated general function, which we need to develop. But that means that we're trying to actually have that coordinated approach. One of our big responsibilities is a sustainable tourism policy, which we're going to be starting on. But I think it was Suzanne, is it? I was reading one of your articles this week or last week, and it was really clearly articulated that actually tourism is putting the stress. People come for the natural environment, and it's the tourists who are putting the stress on the natural environment. So there's a real conflict there, and there's an excess that we need to manage. So that's something that we're really looking forward to doing. And the community groups, yourselves, I think Libby put me in touch with Flinders Island, did some great work that they just published that we're working with the Great Barrier Reef Authority. We're leading a eco-destination certification across the region. So that's 5 LGAs, which is great. So normally that happens in about 18 months, so we've given ourselves to 2024. And we've actually got funding from the World Wildlife Fund to do that. And that will help us provide the leadership and the guidance of what happens and where. Tourism is here, but we've got to make sure that it's viable to not just to the tourists, but also to the communities. We want it working together. We need to lead it to working together, and community input into that is really important. So we'll be starting our tourism strategy this year, and there'll be a lot of input we'll be asking for in that. And we hope, and Chris Ryan does some great work with the universities. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at some of the work that Suzanne and others like do and things like that. It's bringing in everyone's voice to ensure that it's heard. But they're all the legislation that we need to understand. Just the milestones here from 2016 up to 2025. And we're not naive to think that it finishes in 2025. That's probably just the start. As I think it was Winston Churchill said, this is not the end. This is not the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning. And this is a long-term project. This is we're looking 50 years. We're looking intergenerational. We're not looking at what happens now. We're working with our traditional owners and trying to understand how they, their outlook is very intergenerational. It's long-term. It's about what we're leaving, the legacy that we're leaving behind, not just for our children or our children's children, but further on than that. Okay, so the land. That's a really good photo in the middle. So we actually are going to be managing the seabed out to 3 nautical miles, so the state border. And then the majority of our land is on the ocean side of the Great Ocean Road. There's some inland of the Great Ocean Road as well. There's about 170,000 hectares that we're managing. Just to put it in perspective, at the moment we do about 3,500. So the majority of that is under the sea, which hasn't had a lot of work done, in terms of studies. So we've got a lot of work to do there. But it's some of our I suppose, natural assets that we're managing is we'll be managing parts of the Great Otway National Park and the Port Campbell National Park. We'll be managing, eventually, Bells Beach Reserve, as well as the foreshores of the towns and communities along the coast, like Aireys. Some of our built assets that we'll be managing are the new 12 Apostles Visitor Centre. When that gets built, that's a $100 million Geelong City deal fund. We've got the two lighthouses. We've got Cape Otway Light Station and Split Point Lighthouse that we'll be working with AMSA with. We've got 8 caravan parks at the moment. We've got up to about 20 caravan and camping campsites along the coast. And then we also manage all the leases, licenses and permits along the coast, along the coastline. So that can be from weddings to Ice House earlier this year in Torquay. 5,000 people going to markets, the Nightjar and the Anglesey, the Anglesey Riverbank markets and things like that. So then we'll be permitting that. So what we want to do is activate Crown land, but in a responsible way that doesn't cause harm. Now that's difficult. So we've got strategies that we're going to be doing for that. Sorry, yeah, first of all, our identity, and this was worked on from our board and from our teams and a lot of input from our traditional owners. So the vision of what we want to do is we look at the Great Ocean Road as is thriving as one integrated living entity. The purpose exists to care for and protect and manage the coast. First and foremost, we're an environmental protection organisation. So that's what we are looking for. So you're saying you're probably thinking tourism and environmental protection. There's conflict at times, but it doesn't have to be. But we need to work on that. There is at the moment. We've got our values of leadership, collaboration, evidence and trust. And I think the principles are really important to us. Environmental advocacy, as I was saying, is intergenerational equity. Is making sure it's available for everyone. And the last one is connectedness. We've got 2 traditional owner words in it, Narang and Nayam, which are Eastern Mara and Wadawurrung words for connectedness. And it's really important that we bring that in. We're really proud that we've got the only legislation in the Victorian government that has traditional owner language in it. So that's really special to us. How we work with our traditional owners is very important. It's not just to give them the voice, it's actually to learn and to ask them to lead. So it's something that's an ongoing process that we'll be doing over a long period of time. But in the 1st of July, we'll be assuming management of the Cape Otway Light Station, and we'll be bringing the Eastern Mara into that as a commercial partner, and to help them build their capacity and their income so they can be self-sustaining. It's really strange that our traditional owners usually earn most of their money at the moment by giving permits that damage the land, by saying yes to things that they don't really want to say yes to, but they have to. So it's how we can work with them to bring those traditional values to what we're doing along the coast there. Our framework, outward in, inward out. One integrated living entity is the core of what we want to do. So we need to modernise the governance, and I'm sure every single authority or department or LGA has the same thoughts. And one day we'll all get to work out what that means. But we do need to do that. The traditional owner inclusion, as I was saying, protection of the coastal and marine environments. It's the Coastal and Marine Act came out 2018. Before that was just the Coastal Act. So it's how they interact, and we need to really understand how the marine and the coastal and interact there. It's grow the visitation economies, but grow doesn't need to be more numbers. I think we've all realised, the last 2 years has given us a real good chance to pause. And actually, further down, whilst the numbers have been down, yield's gone up. So what can we learn from that? What can we bring forward? one of our, I suppose, new powers, I hate to use the word powers, is that regulation, we can write regulation for tour operator licenses, so the buses. There's great value for those tour companies to come down the coast and to experience what we take for granted at times, but certainly is very special. So it's how we can regulate that. And that's not just through cost, but it will be, but it's through having structured plans of where they go and when they go. So then so we can nearly tell them where, the timings, so that we're not stressing the environment. We can actually close things along the coast that are not suitable, And there's questions around Memorial Arch about the suitability of that memorial at that place. It's very important that the memorial's there. That what can we do? We certainly won't be putting toilets there. There's a lot of work. There was maybe some of you at the consultation this morning with regards to the coastal protection works that are going there. It's under stress, and we've got Mother Nature putting under stress, and we've got humans putting under stress. Mother Nature's going to win. We can't stop that. Okay, but we can change the human one. So we'll be looking at that. And then protect the distinctive areas and landscapes, which is really interesting because so we manage land within the coast and parks, but we can give guidance to land that you can see from the Great Ocean Road. And I didn't know this, but you can actually see up to about 16 k's out to sea and 16 k's inland at times. So it's not just, whilst we actively manage the land within the coast and parks, we have influence over the distinctive areas and landscapes working with our LGAs as well. Okay, so how are we going to do all this? And that's the question that we arrive on Monday morning with, and a little bit further on Friday afternoons sometimes. I think our most exciting thing that we're doing at the moment is our community engagement framework. So that's out. It's done a draft, and it's out for consultation now. So I do ask everyone to give input on that. So if you do go into our website, the longest website in the world, www.greatoceanroadauthority.com.au, and go on and give feedback on that. But it's integral to our success or otherwise. We've got a coastal vegetation strategy that we've just worked on, or we're about to release. So we've done a lot of consultation on that with our volunteer groups, with our traditional owners, with our LGAs, with the coast action groups. Really proud of that, and that gives a consistent approach to the vegetation along the road or in the land that we manage. Visitor infrastructure strategy, and a big part of this we talk about too often at work is about toilets. You wouldn't believe how often we talk about toilets. It's but a toilet strategy to make sure, and especially with those buses, that we have it at the right place and we don't have them at the wrong place. So the visitor infrastructure is about dispersal. So we'll work in conjunction with our sustainable tourism. It's about dispersal. It's having the right thing. It's having, understanding the carrying capacity. Now, carrying capacity is very interesting. We get it for roads all the time, and this road seems to have an unlimited carrying capacity. What's our environmental carrying capacity? And that's what we need to bring into it, because I think it's a lot less than the road. We've got a commercial strategy because we are self-funded. So we need to earn everything that we spend, and we've got plans to spend a lot of money. So at the moment we earn our money through our 8 caravan parks, and this, it's a great business. We've got our leases and licenses. We've got about 40 leases and licenses, but we're going to go up to about 20 caravan and camping grounds in campgrounds. We've got more leases and licenses, but we've also got that, as I was saying earlier, tour operator licensing along the coast, and what we can do with that. We've got the 12 Apostles Visitor Centre, which will be managed by, or under our management. We don't know what it looks like at the moment. So there'll be revenue coming through that, and there'll also be car parking revenues there. Now we've got to have the strategy about car parking, what that looks like. We need to bring community into that, and how it's worked out. but it will be it's a user pay system, and so we will get all of our revenues from people visiting the coast. So we don't have rates, anything like that. But we work closely with the Shire. We have the shared contract at last on waste, which was very painful and very expensive now. We work together on dog regulations and different things like that. Previously, the small community management and ourselves didn't have any authorisation powers. Oops. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you did say the interactive. But can I just ask you, your user pay model seems to be at odds with Victorian National Parks Association, which is that access to parks is free.
Yeah. So we're not looking to put charges to enter into the national parks or enter into the land at all. So the tour operator licences would be commercial entities coming in, and the car parking. It will be, so the new 12 Apostles will be a large car parking area. So it will be for car parking there. But absolutely no tolls, no entry fees to the natural landscape there. Does that answer the question?
Sort of.
Yeah, okay.
Particularly that area is not accessible unless you're in a car, so it's sort of...
Okay, all right, so... Yeah, so the car parking strategy is there. And community engagement is important in all these strategies. So our tourism strategy, we put so whilst we're self-funding, there is a funding gap to start with. So we have put a state government budget bid in to help us establish. I think some of you, Gorp covered this area previously, and we had, I think in the end, about 60 staff. It was probably less when you were there, Mike. And now we've got 160. So it's considerable. A lot of people on the ground. We're trying to get more and more people on the ground doing the work. Very, very keen to not be a bureaucracy. We've got a lot of important work to do on the ground. Yeah.
Covering a massive area, and you say that you're self-funded. I'm just trying to work out how do you balance out the amount of money you're going to spend on all the stuff you're going to have to spend, and you're saying self-funded and you're going to need tourism to get that funding in. Isn't there a problem, conflict?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think when you and our board are really prepared for that conflict and to look at it. So the design of the organisation is being designed as we go as well now. So the self-funding is really interesting, and we won't be self-funding for a couple of years. We understand that and what that means, and it could be with COVID. COVID's put a big question mark on everything, really. Putting car parking charges is not something that we probably would be looking at, and I don't think the government will be looking at. Tour operator licenses, there's no tour operators at the moment, and things like that. So the modelling that was that we were designed on, so it's iterative, put it that way, and the government knows that, and DELP, we work through DELP, so they understand that as well. But it is designed that way, and we have to work on it. Sorry, there's a...
Look, I don't want to sound stupid, but I don't understand how this structure works. We're local residents, we've got a local council, we vote for our councillors, which we hope represent our needs, and that includes the natural environment and all these issues in this part of the world. Now, what are you saying? That you now take that away from us, and you're some nameless body called the Gradation Road Committee, which we do not elect, we don't even know who they are, who are now going to tell us how our rates or our area is going to be used. I mean, are you going to take over control of the marine park down at the Lighthouse?
No,
Would you decide that all of a sudden you can do fishing in the marine park and you walk your dogs there?
No.
Because there's a tourist imperative to do that?
No.
We have some say or control over our local government area at the moment, and what you're telling me, and what I'm hearing here, is that it's going to be completely stripped from us.
Well, no, it's not. And if we go to the marine park, there's we don't set the laws and legislations, and that's what prohibits fishing in the marine parks, not ourselves. So that those that long list of legislations that were there before are still there. So we can't we won't be. We have to manage the land in accordance with the legislation. So we work very closely with the South Coast Shire on dog regulations, for example, and we'll continue to do that. It's not in our interest to actually go against communities and against the local council. So we want to bring the community into it. We want the community voice is really important.
But how do we actually voice that? When you say to me that there's 16-kilometre view out to the ocean, what's to stop you deciding, well, these trees are in the way, the tourist buses can't see those trees, one of the companies wants us to chop them down. Now, you like you said, there's a conflict of interest here because you are beholden to the people paying you money and not to us.
No, we're actually beholden to our legislation. So we have to act in accordance with our legislation. So it's not, we're not beholden to the people that pay the money at all, apart from offering what we say we're going to offer, we need to offer. So within our caravan parks, we need to offer them a great quality product. In terms of you chopping down trees and things like that, there's really strong legislation that stops it. It's not in our interest to do it, and we're an environmental organisation to start with, but it's not in our interest to do it, but there's also legislation to stop it. The Fauna and Flora Guarantee Act is still there. All the acts, all the legislation is still there, and as the Shire need to work within those that legislation, we do as well.
Well, none of those acts worked when it came to the strategic fire break. Why aren't you just another body like the forest management people who can override the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act, whatever it is? This just sounds to me like our area is being taken out of our control, and there are other bigger interests which are going to have more and more influence over the use of our shire, be it at a state level or a national level or an international level. We don't have any recourse. If you make a decision to put a toilet block somewhere or remove some trees or something, how do the Aireys Inlet residents say, no, we don't want that to happen?
Well, like now, any building needs planning permission as well, and the Shire still are the planning authority, and there's planning rules. So they're still there. So it doesn't stop. The creation of the Great Ocean Road Coast and Parks Authority doesn't mean that we can build the Taj Mahal wherever we want it and things like that. We need to do a strategy which the community will inform. We need to work within the planning regulations which are in there to protect those things. So they haven't, the creation of us hasn't got rid of all those checks and balances. So
Yeah, I've got perhaps a rather different take on this, because I think one of the most important things that Aida has ever been involved with is in fact the creation of the Great Ocean Road Community Network, so that we're meeting regularly with the CEO and Libby and Jody, with 15 other groups that range from Torquay to Port Campbell, and so far the level of communication has been terrific, and I think we appreciate the desirability of having an overarching authority rather than, I think there were 15 or something that had responsibilities for Crown land and so on.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the opportunity to actually have a genuine region-wide strategy about what is sustainable tourism. What does that term actually mean? I think one of the critical issues that is going to confront you is when you think of you talked about the fires at Wye River. More recently, there's been issues of coastal erosion where the Wye River Surf Club nearly fell into the sea, and you were talking earlier about what's happening at Eastern View, and the need for clarity about whose responsibility that is, because we're still getting slightly mixed messages that if there was a real storm surge at well, there was one recently near Fairhaven, and a lot of work had to be done. Do local communities go to you, or do they go to DELP? Or, I mean, there is still that confusion about where ultimate responsibility is going to lie.
And I'd love to be able to give you absolute clarity now, but as I said, 2025 or the 1st of November is only when the land comes. Actually, the growing of the authority and the development of the capacities will take time and will work. So DELP is still there, and they're still very, very important. The state government are, through DELP, are responsible for coastal protections. So those major, so any work that's done down at Eastern View will be through the state government. Our role is there to coordinate and to bring it together and to assist in that, to make the process hopefully a little easier. But we're not there yet. And as much as we love the advocates, we actually like the people who are questioning us as well, because that's really needed. And we need to continue to that. You need to hold us to account. You need to ask us why.
But when we have a situation where DELP still talks about returning tourist numbers to their pre-COVID levels, whereas you and your authority talk about much more sustainable tourism, slower, region-wide, etc. I mean, how are you going to resolve the power struggle?
Absolutely, but certainly DELP haven't, when we speak to them, haven't been talking about numbers as much as yield, as about dispersal. So the numbers could be maintained if they were dispersed more, if they weren't going to the same place at the same time, and and things like that. But
you just mentioned earlier about this creation of a multi-million-dollar visitor centre at Brussels. Now, and with the big car parking and everything, isn't that going against the whole dispersal thing? It's going to encourage more and more of these day trips down the coaches, which give nothing to the area, as people have already mentioned. And the idea being to try and encourage more in the hinterland, more sort of tourism around. So just building this huge visitor centre is just going to increase the demand for day trips straight down to that and back.
If that's the only thing that's done, if that's the only thing that's done, then that will be the effect. But that's what we're looking to do, is to create the dispersal across the rest of the land. So it's not, that was a state and federal government, Geelong City deal, bells and whistles and things like that they need to do. And we actually do need key draw cuts. We understand that. We, like everyone, will be led by our government leaders in certain things, and they do things a certain way. And I agree that if we leave it just as the 12 apostles and don't look at how we can move people on, how we can get them to stay, how we can encourage visitation through the hinterland, both travel but also visitation into and outside of it. And that's what that tourism strategy is to do. It's not, and our strategy isn't only about the land that we manage. It's about coming into it, how we, the roads in and out and things like that. We've got a very large problem with accommodation, worker accommodation, both key worker and seasonal worker accommodation. So we're working with our shires and the government and RDB and DELP on coming up with some long-term solutions for that. But building a $100 million visitor centre that no one can work at, or there's no staff for, it doesn't make sense. So there's other things that we need to do, but absolutely, we've got to be really careful that we just don't do things that make it worse. Sorry.
No, the question I had, in a sense, has been partly picked up by others, but let's just reflect on what you're hearing. I think there are many people who feel that the objectives of the government objectives for the Great Ocean Road are great, that we can understand and accept that it's work in progress and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. But I think at the same time, most of us feel that it's in that circumstance that the actual model in key areas has to be right. Mm-hmm. And one area that you keep hearing about, which I think is of real concern, is when the authority has to be self-managed. And you start talking about where that, not self-managed, self-financed, and where that finance is coming from. When it comes from things like car parking, then all of us begin to get very concerned that an obvious way for you, that's right, yes. So the incentive is absolutely for you to build more car parks.
Yeah, and I absolutely understand that it's and that's the nexus and the conflict that we have from being the environmental protection advocacy and this
the growing visitor economy.
And and we're lucky to have a board who are totally aware of that and are very much looking at that. So we we don't want the coast to be a tarmac. We don't actually want, and our car park strategy may actually reduce car parking in certain areas as well.
But then it would reduce your
We don't have any revenue from this at the moment.
No.
So it's we're building as we go along.
But I'm only using that as one
absolutely.
example.
No.
That where you earn revenue from has to really be compatible in the long term with the
That's
idea
right.
of sustainable
And that's what we're saying. It's
tourism.
very iterative at the moment. It's we actually have counted the number of car parks, believe it or not, along the Gradation Road, or that they're being counted. So we know that. So there's no actual plans to increase that. And in fact, at the 12 Apostles, for example, it's to decrease the coastal car parks and put them, then centralise them and look for active transport solutions along the coast to visit Lockhart Gorge and Gibson Steps and walking tracks along there and things like that. So the strategy is to come and it will be informed, but it's not necessary. It's not more. It's about in the right place. It's about where it's controlling the stresses on the land, and managing that. Sorry.
It's interesting to see something with such a long-range planning period at the moment
Mm.
in the political situation. I'm just wondering how vulnerable you are to government changes.
I see this as being filmed.
Just careful on that one.
No, it's a fair point, and to be honest, we don't know, but there was both sides, multi-party or bilateral agreement on the formation of the authority. So the group, the task force was led by Terry Mulder and Peter Batchelor, one from Liberal, one Labor, and things like that, and they worked really closely together. So the actual need for this is known throughout all areas of politics. Now we are about to go into a state government year, and there's going to be politicking, and we've got to be aware of that. But we're quite, with it being bilateral agreement on this, I think we're very safe. But we've got to actually prove it as well. So we have to work together. We have to work with our communities. We have to work with our traditional owners, work with our LGAs and our partners to actually show our worth as well. And it's only through worth that we'll keep going, not through and through delivering and through doing things well. Doesn't matter if you've got all the political backing in the world. If you're doing not a very good job, then you ain't going to last.
Who's paying if it's not the car parks at the moment?
Who's paying us? Caravan parks at the moment?
Caravan park.
Yeah. So our caravan parks, so I'm not sure. I can say this. I'm sure it's in our annual report. You video this, I've got. No,
I'll edit it out for you, don't worry.
We only get about $16 million to the caravan through our commercial operations now. So we're self-funding that. So it's the added. So we're looking to invest millions in the tourism strategy, not a $50,000 strategy with and things like that. So it's those. So there's some initialing works that we need to do. The infrastructure strategy and things like that. We need to spend time and money to do them properly. So that's where I suppose some of the stresses on our finances are coming from. But we've gone to state government to, they've told us they want us to do it, so we've gone to state government and asked them to supply the money for that. So in the long run, we're not concerned at, once everything's coming, and we're not looking, and it's not a $100 million organisation and multi-million dollars and things like that. We're talking, sustainable. We're not talking about, $100 million in revenue and things like that. So I think sometimes, we've just got to put it in perspective. Sorry, yeah.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Just looking through your list of
Yep.
strategic plans that are...
These are some of them. Yeah.
I see that the community has some serious expertise
Absolutely.
in all of those
Absolutely.
things there.
And we
And
hope.
I'd like to know at what point I appreciate you've got a new appointment coming, and that person's obviously going to have some community engagement as part of their portfolio.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really, very valuable to the organisation to actually engage with the community and co-design
Absolutely.
some of these strategies. Because
Yeah.
we have the experience of living with visitors.
Absolutely. And it's really important, and I totally agree. And
We
I think,
live with the impact of that, the car parking, we see it every day, how the car parks are inefficient or whatever. And I think rather than develop a strategy and then say, well, we think that, why not engage the community along the way?
absolutely.
To develop some of these strategies.
Absolutely, and that's our intention, which is the community will engagement opportunities associated with all of these projects, and they'll be integral to them. Flinders Island strategy was a community co-design strategy. We did a very small community co-design strategy with Point Grey, which was a stunning success. Apart from VCAT, but in actually the design and the changing of expectations of that community and bringing them around and things like that. So absolutely, the knowledge in this room, the knowledge in every room along the coast, through lived experience as well as working in business experience and education, is vital to us, and it's our biggest resource. Volunteers are a huge resource to us. Our community are a resource to us, and we want to use that resource. So it's vital that we do. So absolutely, and again, going back to the gentleman there, hold us to account with that, please, because it's really important that you do. I've really gone off track here.
You have and we have.
No, it's all right. I haven't turned the page since page 1. Draft community engagement framework. So we did have consultants work on this with us. And I am going to, it's only new, so and I was on holiday last week. So I'm going to read this bit, sorry. There we go. So the 5 core elements of our engagement is to strengthen capacity and enable strategic leadership, to increase community participation and build collective knowledge. And I think that goes to your last point. It's really, so that's a fundamental in our core element, is to connect and learn from our communities and knowledge holders. So that's our traditional owners, knowledge holders, but also our communities, but also our children. Because we really need to bring them along on this as well. We need to be transparent and keep our communities informed, and you need to hold us to account. And we need to receive and respond to feedback from our communities. So they're the 5 key elements. So community is central. So it's in our legislation as well. It's in our statement of expectations. The there's 3 really strong bits in our statement of expectations. One is traditional owner inclusion, one is community engagement, and the other is sustainable tourism. Yes.
So what's the difference between regular frequent meetings and ongoing?
I'm sorry?
What's the difference between regular and ongoing? Frequency of meeting or engagement.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry. I thought that was a trick question. No, so we'll have formal meetings, so we'll establish a community leadership group that will have formal meetings, and we have regular meetings with Gorkin. So that are regular, and structured, and then we'll have larger forums and things like that. But that just won't be the only time that we engage. So the ongoing engagement is ad hoc and less structured. So we'll be coming to the community on different things, but we'll have structured formats as well. So attending this maybe depends on how I go today, I suppose. But it may be. I know that the Shire comes to this every year, so perhaps it's something that you might ask us to come to and things like that. So, but we'll get that feedback from the communities. So does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
What's your relationship with Vic Roads?
We've got a relationship with Vic Roads. Growing. Difficult. And
Is there a formal relationship?
Yeah, absolutely.
With Vic
Yeah,
Roads?
absolutely. There's a formal relationship with Vic Roads, and we've got a very close friend who has roots into Vic Roads that we'll be using as well. But yeah, no. So Vic Roads is our ex-CEO, who actually lives in our Aireys, Vanessa, was working for Vic Roads, so we had a really good relationship when she was there. Peter Tubble?
The Michael.
Michael Tubble, sorry. pin tunnels are racehorse now. But yeah, so yeah, we meet with them regularly, and we bring them in. They're really busy. They're very structured. They're we're looking, and Robin's given us a very good idea that we may be pursuing in terms of trying to get specific funding for the road itself, or outside of the greater budget, and whether we can do that or not, we'll advocate for that. But our coordinated general function means that they have to come to us if they're doing work now. So just going back to, I suppose, our legislation, we had Enabling Act back in 2020, September, which enabled us to start the authority, and there's an Amendment Act that comes in on the 1st of September this year, which actually gives us the broader responsibilities, and that's when our coordinated general function comes in. And so all agencies need to come to us to inform us in that. So that's going to be interesting because... Good luck. Yeah, it's a... Thanks. But you know what? We just have to do it. You know, we have to establish relationships. You know, it is about relationships as well. It's about influence. It's not about throwing a weight around, but it is when you need to type thing, but it's about establishing those relationships and working through it and finding different ways to do it. You know, our relationship we have with Surf Coast Shire is slightly different to the one that we have with Colac Otway Shire, which is, you know, different to the one to Crane, White and Moyne and Warrnambool, for example. So we need to have structure, but we need to have flexibility as well. But they're a big partner, they're a big stakeholder that we really need to work hard on, to be honest. Like, yeah, and that's everyone. But I think everyone's got the same issue. So if we can have all 5 LGAs and ourselves working with that, I think there's different ways of skinning that cat. But it's a tough one. But thanks for bringing it up. But it's there, and we acknowledge it. Oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to say I'm aware of the time. And
I've gone on. Sorry.
Give Dan,
all right.
No, because there's been so many questions.
No.
Give him time to finish his presentation.
I think I'm just about done. So this is just the feedback. We're looking for feedback on our community engagement framework. So please, we've got some online sessions, 30th of April, 9th of May. This is a bit plugging this, isn't it? Or share the feedback by email. Have your say at greatoceanroadauthority.vic.gov.au if you can remember that, or just go on our website, please. It's really important that we do get that feedback. It just got a little bit on coastal erosion because it is a big issue in this area. Eastern View, we're working with DELP, so there were sessions this morning. With that, we're looking at how we deal with that. And that will affect how we manage Memorial Arch and things like that as well. We're getting that community feedback there. Let us know that you are heard or you're not heard, please. Coastal adaptation is policy. We need to learn to understand Mother Nature and not try to fight at times. Wye River was brought up. There was quite a success, but perhaps the real issue is building a surf club on a primary dune that's continually moving and things like that. So we need to look at that policy about, and would it be allowed to happen these days and things like that. So it wasn't about to fall down, by the way, the surf club. But it's we've got to look at broader things. So do we look at having a retreat policy of does a surf club need to be on that primary dune? Be a question that lots of people may have, but it's and we've got to take strong decisions like that. Yes, surf lifesaving. Please don't get me wrong. Surf lifesaving is an essential service. We need to have it. It's very, very important. But the big buildings don't need to be there. But we do need to have appropriate facilities in appropriate places. Multiple stakeholders. DOT. We're doing a lot of work with DOT on Eastern View as well. Okay, and then just Demons Bluff, an Anglesey there, worked really, that's pretty interesting place. So we actually closed the beach, and I think it's the first beach that was closed in Victoria, that we've closed access to it. And it's just as well, really, because we've had some significant failures there since that, and you would have heard of the jarosite failures on New Year's Day. So we need to be looking at how we manage that, and it's not about putting concrete on the cliffs, I'm afraid. It's about changing use or restricting use, and we will continue to do that. Safety is really important, but it's human safety, but also the environmental safety as well. Okay, so it's a huge issue for us, coastal erosion. It's one of those things that we're working. It's very important, but we need to make the right decisions, and community involvement in that is vital. It was a great partnership in Anglesey. We worked with the Surf Lifesaving Club, the surfers, to get the message out that don't go on the beach. On New Year's Day, after the event at Jarosite, we actually put security back on to make sure that people weren't walking along that beach, and not one person tried to walk along it. And I thought that was brilliant. And that's that the community got behind that. It was decisions that were DELT were involved in, PV were involved in, we were involved in, the community were involved in, and it's a huge success. Any questions? I didn't realise you were going to be so shy. Sorry.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for excellent presentation. So much really, really good thinking, I think, already going into that. So I've actually been in the travel and tourism sector for a couple of decades. So, and I can attest to the fact that the fundamentals of the visitor economy, the tourism sector, is effectively broken, is cracked. And you've alluded to a lot of things within that as to where that thinking is and what you're looking to move on.
Yeah.
So I guess my particular question is around, and it's a bit of a hobby horse, I'm warning you, is about measurement and transparency.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm raising it in particular, particularly this early stage, and the question I'm asking you is effectively, what is the thinking of the authority, and is this something that they're going to be, in a sense, really fleshing out in terms of a measurement system to underpin all of this? Because obviously the what we've had up until now has been very much related to the old tourism model.
Yep.
That is flawed
Numbers.
and is basically an economic econometric type model.
Yep.
And as you have said, I think very ably in your presentation, there are so many other factors in terms of environmental factors, social factors, community, resident sentiment, what sort of tourism do residents want, how much do they want, etc., etc. So the issue is having a fit for purpose, if you want, measurement system that underpins all this very complex work that I'm pleased that you guys are doing, that I'm not.
Oh, no, you might be. No,
and to be able to really to be able to put on such things as what are the impacts on biodiversity, what are the emissions, etc. How are we tracking on these things? How do residents feel about the sort of tourism that's in operation at the moment? Are we getting there or not? So what do you have any idea at this stage about that sort of measurement system, or how you're going to approach that issue? Sorry, it was a very long question, but I had to sort of context it a bit. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, and it's vital. The success of it, is that measurement and measuring the right things. So have we got
and the transparency that
right.
relates to that?
And actually, the data itself has to be right as well, because I think we can easily measure data and ignore some and things like that. So have we got that? No. Are we, and do we know what it looks like? We've got ideas, but actually we need to go out to community, we need to do the strategy, we need to find out what those really key factors are. I know there's the Shire do sentiment surveys. Yep. And things like that. So how we can work with our shires to ensure their sentiment surveys are shared, so you're not getting 3 surveys and things like that. But it's sharing information. it's working, our shires are key partners in tourism, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's working with them, it's working with Great Ocean Regional Tourism, they're destination marketing. But
Yes.
you go into Melbourne Airport and what do you see is the 12 Apostles.
Yeah.
And is that what we want
No.
them to be looking at?
Yeah.
Visit Victoria did a ad on TV at Point Impossible where we don't want, we can't have too many visitors going, and these agencies are seeming, or could be seen to be working against what we're trying to achieve. So it's a lot of advocacy, upwards, downwards, sideways, and things like that. But it is getting those measurements right. It's getting community involved in that, getting the industry involved,
and sharing
absolutely.
it. Absolutely, because if it's not visible, if those measures not visible, etc., those problems that you're alluding to,
this is it.
People don't know until you get seeing the impact of it.
And we're not here to solve problems. We're here to help. It's everyone is here to. We've all got that responsibility. That's not to say we haven't got a great responsibility, but it is everyone's responsibility to actually improve that and to give the feedback and give the information, but making sure the data that we collect is right and is measured, and as you say, is shared. Because we want to make a change, because you guys can make a bigger change than us, to be honest. Yeah, and we know that.
Absolutely,
and that's what we need. Anything else at all? Sorry, Charlotte. Oops.
Just your personnel, you said you increased to say 160. Are they coming from agencies you already work with, and what's their expertise?
Oh, right, okay. So they're job specific. So there's on the ground conservation, education, caravan park stuff. A lot of caravan. We running 8 large caravan parks does take a lot of people. But in terms of we're advertising or interviewing for a transition and establishment manager yesterday. So applicants came from a broad spectrum, some from government, some from private enterprise. Our new director, who starts on the 17th of May, was previously the CEO of a space station, Equatorial Launch Australia in the Northern Territory, where she was dealing a lot with the traditional owners and things like that. So, but you've got both local government background, but also commercial background, but very strategic and development background there. So we get Jody.
We've been saying it wasn't, but it really was.
Our CEO was previously the co-owner of PricewaterhouseCoopers Indigenous Consulting. So we're not limiting ourselves to government people. In fact, we want to change the way. We need it, but we don't need too much. That wasn't recorded, was it? So, but so we need to actually make sure that we as an organisation have the breadth of knowledge and experience to actually be able to do our job as well. So they're not all government. I'm definitely not government. You might be able to tell that actually. I'm definitely not from the government background.
One very last question.
I was just going to say, I think one of the number one things we need to bear in mind when it comes to tourism, whatever, it's about respect. And I think people respect.
Yep.
And it's about people coming down here that they respect the environment, they keep the coast clean, that kind of respect the wildlife.
Yeah.
It's all that kind of thing. Respect the people that live down here, in terms of whatever strategy you're putting, respect the people who live down here and they've got to work in with the tourists as well. So for me, number one is respect.
Respect and education. We need to educate them about the environment, about the communities, about the towns and things like that. So absolutely.
Danny, thank you very, very much. That's